Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Mr. Jet. Welcome back for another Read Aloud. And today, since Thanksgiving is about 2 weeks or so away, I thought we'd do a Thanksgiving book today. And I've got here Franklin Thanksgiving. Before we get into our Read Aloud, though, we have to go over our learning objectives. Our first objective today is always going to be our vocabulary. We've got 3 terms as usual, and then we're going to read our book. We're going to answer a few questions as we go along with the book. And at the end, we're going to reflect and then answer just 2 or 3 more questions just to finish off. And with that, let's go ahead and get our vocabulary out of the way. Our first term today is grumbled. This is spelled Grumbled. This is a verb, and this is to complain about something in a bad-tempered way. Our next term is bountiful. This is spelled Bountiful. This is an adjective, and this means in a large quantity. Our last term is exclaimed, and this is a verb. This is spelled Exclaimed. Excuse me, Exclaimed. And the definition is to cry out suddenly, especially when surprised. Here are the terms and definitions if you don't have them already copied out. And with that, let's get into our read aloud. Franklin's Thanksgiving. Franklin liked everything about Thanksgiving. He liked eating pumpkin fly pie and cranberry jelly. He liked the cornabacus and the corn husk dolls. But most of all, he liked having his grandma and grandpa come for dinner. It was a family tradition, and Franklin could hardly wait. A week before Thanksgiving, a postcard arrived from Franklin's grandparents. "Oh dear," sighed Franklin's mother. "Grandma and Grandpa can't make it back for the holidays." "But they have to," cried Franklin. "They're always here for Thanksgiving." Franklin's mother gave him a hug. "There will still be the 4 of us," she said. "It won't be the same," Franklin grumbled. Over the next few days, Franklin was so busy that he didn't have much time to think about Grandma and Grandpa. He helped his mother pick apples and make applesauce. He helped his father dig up vegetables and store them in the cellar. Franklin and Bear helped Harriet and Beatrice pick berries and gather nuts. In the gardens and orchards, forests and fields, everyone was bringing in the harvest. Franklin counted all the jars and jams and preserves. "I think this year was the most bountiful ever," announced his father. "We could feed the whole town." "I just wish we could feed Grandma and Grandpa," sighed Franklin. His mother agreed. "We'll miss having company," she said. At school, Franklin's class made a harvest quilt and learned how the early settlers celebrated Thanksgiving. "What are you doing for Thanksgiving, Mr. Owl?" asked Franklin. "I'll have dinner with my mother," he replied. "Our relatives can't visit this year." "Ours neither," said Franklin. Then he had an idea. He invited Mr. Owl and his mother for dinner. "It's all right with my parents," Franklin explained. "They want company." "Well, thank you, Franklin," said Mr. Owl. "We'd be delighted to come." Franklin smiled. This would be a wonderful surprise for his parents. Who are the early settlers that Franklin's class is talking about, do you think? At home, Franklin's mother looked at the berry pies cooling in the windowsill. She had an idea. She walked over to Bear's house and invited the whole family for Thanksgiving. It would be a wonderful surprise for everyone, she explained. Excuse me. In the garden, Franklin's father waved to Mr. Mole. "Are you going to your sister's for Thanksgiving?" he asked. "Not this year," replied Mr. Mole. "With my broken ankle, I can't go far." Franklin's father had an idea. He invited Mr. Mole for dinner. "It will be a wonderful surprise for everyone," he explained. After school, Franklin went home with Moose. That's when he had another idea. It was Moose's family's first Thanksgiving in Woodland. Franklin invited them for dinner. "It's all right with my parents," he explained. "They want company. We'd be delighted," replied Mrs. Moose. Franklin smiled. His surprise was getting bigger and bigger. On Thanksgiving morning, Franklin got up early to help with dinner. He stirred soup, shucked corn, then he set the table for 9. Franklin's father counted the place settings. He shook his head and reset the table for 5. Franklin's mother looked at the table. She was puzzled, but she added 3 more place settings, and everyone took turns peeking out the window, watching for the surprise guest. Mr. Owl and his mother were the first to arrive. "Surprise!" Franklin shouted to his parents. "This is a surprise," they exclaimed. Then Franklin saw the bear family, and Mr. Mole. Now everyone was surprised. All the guests crowded inside, holding platters and bowls heaped with food. Franklin and his parents laughed and tried to explain what had happened. "Well, we sure have plenty to eat," declared Franklin's mother. "We just don't have plenty of room." Franklin knew that they had a big problem. The Moose family hadn't arrived yet. Franklin looked around. There wasn't one bit of room inside, but outside, suddenly, Franklin knew what to do. So what could have Franklin and his parents done so that there wasn't such a mix-up with how many people were coming over for Thanksgiving? Excuse me. Moose and his family arrived as all the others came out the door. Everyone carried food and dishes, tables and chairs. "What's going on?" asked Moose. "We're eating our Thanksgiving dinner in the field," answered Bear. "Just like the early settlers," said Franklin. It was a wonderful afternoon. Everyone ate lots of good food, and everyone said how thankful they were for good friends and family. Franklin was thankful for 3 helpings of pumpkin fly pie. "I'm eating Grandma and Grandpa's share," he explained. Soon the sun was setting, and it was time to go home. "This was a wonderful day," said Franklin's mother. Franklin agreed. "Let's do it again next year," he said. Everyone laughed and cheered. Grandma and Grandpa phoned later that night, and Franklin told them about the new Thanksgiving tradition. They promised that next year they wouldn't miss it for anything. Franklin smiled. He might not get 3 helpings of pumpkin fly pie next year, but he knew he'd still be thankful. So, what are some of your family's traditions, and what are you thankful for this Thanksgiving? Let me know. I'll see you guys next time for our next Read Aloud. Have a great night.